session is about the various things that came between 16 and 17, many new things regarding object notation and objects in general. So it's a wrap-up to wrap all the new things in, that came in R3, R4, R5, R6 of V16. So objectification. We are going to make everything objects, as you saw in the Laurent Ribardière masterclass this morning. Everything will be transformed as objects. So why objects? Because objects are much easier to pass to methods, to project methods, as a bunch of properties, as a single parameter. And you can, from a project method, you can return in $0 a set of properties, not a single value anymore, but a set of various properties. So it's much more convenient. You don't need pointers anymore with objects. For example, when you are using arrays in 4D and you want a project method to access that array, you are still forced to pass a pointer to the array so that the project method can modify the array. And with object, you just pass actually the object or the collection, because you now have in the language objects and collections, which is a kind of arrays. And you don't have to pass a pointer on your object or a pointer on your collection so that your project method you are calling can modify this. So no pointers are needed anymore, so it's easier. So instead of having a huge flat list of process variables in your code, objects can let you organize your information. It's more convenient for you to organize your information by set of objects. For example, if you have an address with the street number, the street name, the zip code, and so on, it's convenient to organize this information in one object instead of having several process variables in the huge flat list of your variables. Maybe you have some naming conventions to remember where you put your information in your process variables, but here it's much more convenient to use objects so that you have an object, for example, address, and you say address.zipcode, address.street, and so on, to organize your information. Name parameters. So when you are calling a project method, you are used to use $1, $2, $3. $1, $2, $3 is difficult to know what $1 means or $26 means. So it's more convenient and meaningful to pass one object and use a property name, a clear property name, to say, okay, I am passing in $1 dot zip code, $1 dot street name, and so on. So it makes your code more readable to use names instead of parameter numbers. And when say you have a project method in your project method in your code which accepts, for example, $1, $2, $3, and you want to later you want to add a fourth parameter. So okay, I just have to add $4, and you don't have to change all your colors method, because 4D is smart enough. If you are calling a method with only passing only 3 parameters, and you are calling a method which is accepting a fourth parameters, it makes it optional. So you can code using con parameters if you actually passed the fourth parameter or not. So your fourth parameter is optional. Okay, but say later again you want to add a fifth parameter, and you want the fifth parameter to be mandatory. You are stuck. Then you have to change all your code. Everywhere where you are calling your method, you have to pass the fourth parameter, which cannot be optional any longer, and the fifth one. So I'm pretty sure you did have this use case already. And by using objects, it's much more convenient. You don't have this problem anymore. You just pass an object, and you pass the properties you want. And later, if you want to add a new property in your object, just take into account in your code that the property can be there or not be there, and that's it. You don't have to change your colors any longer. So it makes your code more maintainable or easy and easier to extend, actually. JSON is very important, and JSON is meant to represent as textual your object information. So this is designed for that. The JSON format has been designed for that purpose. So that when you have objects in your 4D code, you are pretty always sure that you can represent your object information in text format. And this is very, very convenient because you can then exchange your object information by mail, by HTTP, using a file or whatever, with another 4D application, your own other 4D application, but maybe someone else 4D application, or non-4D application as well. So this is very, very convenient. And maybe you are used to XML before, and XML doesn't have this property. It's not natural to map your information, your variable information in your data to XML. I'm pretty sure many of you have already played with the DOM command and SAX command. It's quite tedious to use XML command to import or export information to and from XML from your 4D variable. But with JSON, with the command JSON parse and JSON stringify, it's just one line of code, and you have the exact same representation. And this is very, very important. Oops. What important last thing? Yes, so JavaScript inspired. So 4D is not JavaScript. We are not transforming for the 4D language into JavaScript. This is not the goal. But we got a lot of inspiration from JavaScript, especially the JavaScript functions, because we felt that it is important for you to be able to hire people coming from a university where they learned JavaScript for sure. Young people coming from university all know JavaScript. So for you, it's easier to hire someone who is used to JavaScript to learn him, to teach him the 4D language, and you're pretty sure that this guy will be efficient at the 4D language sooner and easier, because the 4D language has some similarity with the JavaScript language. And the JavaScript language is currently the most popular language in the world. So it's for you, it will be easier to hire more people to help you in your business. So in objects, so an object is a dictionary of values and keys. So that means that actually you may say it's an object, it has some properties and name properties and values, but you can look at an object actually as an index, like an index in the database, okay? An index, it is something to access very fast a value from a key. This is the purpose. And an object, you can see an object as an index. It is a way to access a value very fast from its name. So how can we access a property from its name? You have various means, actually. The one you know already is a beget. So it is a command. You pass an object, the property name, and an optional type parameter to eventually to do the coercion if you want, the type coercion. So you can pass any name you want. There's absolutely no restriction on the name. For example, the name may contain spaces, diacritic character. It could even be a space. The space, the single character space, is a valid name for a property. Even the empty string is a valid property name. Could be strange, but I know that some people are using this because they are sure that no one will type, no end user will type an empty string as a property name, so it doesn't conflict with their own property if they want to hide something in the object. And it does type coercion. The other way is we introduced in R4 is using the dot notation by saying object.property_name. But here, in using this syntax, it is a syntax that has restrictions on the name, obvious restrictions. For example, the space or an empty string is obviously not possible using this syntax. But it is only because of the syntax of this notation. The object behind is exactly the same. So here, the restriction on the name is that the name is only made of letters, digits, the $, and the underscore. And an additional restriction is that the first character cannot be a digit. Okay? So actually, this is exactly the same restriction we adopted in 4D as JavaScript. It is exactly the same restrictions. So by letter, I mean any letter in any language. It could be hiragana or katakana in Japanese, or it could be whatever, or Cyrillic or whatever. It's a letter in the sense of Unicode definition. And dot notation, you don't have, obviously, the optional type parameter to do any kind of coercion. So there's no coercion in using this syntax. The third way to access a property is using the bracket notation. So here I say my object, square bracket, property name, square bracket. Here in the property name, it is an expression, it is a string expression. You can pass here any property name. So there's no restriction on the name, so it's like objet. You could pass anything. It could be the result of a method call, for example, that returns a string. So it's very convenient. Here again, you could, if you want, use the empty string as a property name or whatever. And there's no coercion, there's no type coercion, because obviously there's no optional type parameter. One final kind of property access, for example, here, this is an example from 4D Pro. 4D Pro is using the object, the C object data type in 4D to manipulate the document, but also the paragraphs, the headers, the footer are objects, even the style sheets are objects in 4D Pro. Everything are objects in 4D Pro. And when you want to get or set a property on this object, you may use objet or the dot notation or the bracket. And there is a fourth way, which is a dedicated WP get attributes and set attributes command. The advantage of using this command is that because we know you are talking to 4D Pro, you have a control semantic. That means that we know what is a font name, we know what is a font size, we know that a color cannot be a date or a time, so we are doing type checking and so on. So there is some intelligence by using this command. Some fast benchmark showed that the dot notation, object.property name, is 4 times faster than objet. So this is the fastest way to get a property value by using the dot notation. It could be explained because this is the most specific way. This is not generic. The property name is hard-coded in your code, so it cannot be any expression here. So we could accelerate this specific case. So the dot notation is always the fastest way to get one single property. Each time we release a new feature in 4D, maybe you are used to already, but we publish a blog post to explain this. So I'm doing some advertisement here for the blog post. And so what I described here was actually published already on the blog post. And I recommend this blog post because it explains the various way to access the property name. And here, using the 4D Write Pro example, for example, OBSet, you could mix OBSet using the constants defined for 4D Write Pro. Here, using the dot property. Here, using the bracket notation, you can pass, again, the constants coming from 4D Write Pro, if you want. Here, using the WP get attributes. All these examples are doing exactly the same, but with different syntax. So you have the choice. Some prefer one syntax and others prefer another syntax. A C object variable is not an object. It is a variable. I'm saying that because sometimes people are confusing a variable, which is a name box. A variable is a container. It is not the value. A variable is a container that may contain a value. And the value is what is inside the variable. So don't confuse the variable and what is inside the variable. So in the case of a C object variable, a C object variable may contain a reference to an object. I say may because a C object variable, when you just declare C object my variable, at that point the variable doesn't contain anything. There's no reference, there's no object, so the variable is empty and doesn't contain any reference to any variable. Some 4D language commands are expecting a variable and others are expecting a value. So that's important again to make the distinction. For example, blob to variable. The blob to variable command. You have a blob and you read the blob to fill a variable. Obviously, this command needs a variable. It needs a container to fill the variable with the content of the blob. So if you pass blob to variable a value instead of a variable, it won't work. You will get an error. But your 4D method project, your 4D project methods, can only receive values. You cannot pass a variable to a project method. If you want to pass a variable, you need to pass a pointer to a variable. And a pointer to a variable is a value. A pointer is a value. So this is not the same. So when I am writing, my object is assigned to a new object. So the new object command is a new command actually. It has been introduced in V16, R2 or R3, I don't remember. It's maybe you are used to use OBSet. OBSet automatically creates a new object the first time you are calling it. So it's much more convenient to use a new object, to create a new object. So here, my object is the green graph at the right side. So I have an object, and I put in my variable a reference to this object. I am doing exactly the same with the second variable, my other object variable. with a red object. And when I am assigning other object to my object, actually what I am doing here is my object variable contains the reference to the second object. So I am not copying the object. I am only referencing the same object in two different variables. Okay? So here, my green object is not referenced anymore in this specific code. So what did happen to the green object? We don't know. We don't know because actually, maybe in some other parts of your application, you are using the green object reference. Maybe the reference has been used elsewhere. So 4D is taking care of all the references to your object. This is by a simple reference counter. Each object has a reference counter inside to count the references that has been used to this object. So here, the green object, maybe say we only have this code, these 3 lines of code in my application. In this case, my green object has only one reference, and the red object has only one reference at the second line of code. When I execute the third line of code, the red object has 2 references, and the green object has no longer any reference. No variable in my code references the green object any longer. So at that point, 4D knows that the green object can be disposed and freed from memory. So this is what we call reference counting. This is the fundamental way to do what we may call garbage collection. Garbage collection is sometimes used for another kind of automatic deallocation. But here it is reference counting. Yes, so it's here, excuse me. Here to say that the 2 variables are referencing the same red object. So an object property, yes, an object property is not a variable. A.b is not a variable. So, for example, I can't call blob2 variable passing it a.b.c because a.b.c is not a variable, and blob2 variable is expecting a variable. If you want to call blob2 variable and save the result in a.b.c, you have to use an intermediate local variable and copy the local variable to a.b.c. Because an object property is not a variable, you cannot have a pointer on an object property. That's the reason why. But remember, you don't need pointers anymore. You don't need pointers anymore because so there's no such thing as a row a.b.c. You don't need pointers anymore because actually when you think about it, when you assign an object to a variable, as you saw, you are copying, actually you are assigning the reference to an object into the variable. A reference to an object, it's like a pointer. It's a pointer to the object actually. It's an internal pointer. So a pointer to a C object variable would be a pointer to a pointer. Does that make sense? It's useless?
Well, we still need pointers to tables for various things.
Yes, you still need pointers to tables, except with Orda. With the advent of Orda, you don't need pointers to tables any longer, because tables are actually objects by themselves. When you saw the masterclass from Laurent Berdier, ds.employee, is what we call a data class. It's a kind of table, but we prefer to call it a data class to make the distinction. And ds.employee is an object. You can put it in a C object variable. And it has exactly the same possibility as any other C object. You can pass ds.employee to any project method that is accepting a C object. Hobby set magic. So maybe you didn't realize that Hobby set magic has some Hobby set has some interesting magic, because Hobby set is one rare command in 4D that is accepting both a variable or a value. For example, in the first example, you are passing Hobby set a variable, a local variable. And because of that, Hobby set knows that you are passing actually a variable, so it can modify the variable if it needs to. And the second case, you are passing the result of the call to the project method. So your Hobby set is receiving a value, not the variable. So in that case, it receives only the reference, not the box around the value. So Hobby set in the first case, if $myObject, my local variable is empty, doesn't contain the object, Hobby set is smart with you and allocates a new object and sets the variable with the new object and then assigns the code property to 1. It can do that because you are passing the variable. But when you are using the dot notation cannot do that because the dot notation it is not receiving the variable. It is not receiving the $myObject variable. So there's no logic behind to automatically fill the $myObject with a variable if it needs to. It's up to you to do that. But it's easy, and I will show you how to do that. Because of the new null data type and command in 4D. So a word, the difference between null and undefined. Undefined means it doesn't exist, obviously. This is English. So when you are accessing a property of something which is undefined, produce undefined without any error. Without any error, and this is new in R5. Up to R4, it used to produce an error in 4D. Say A.B doesn't exist because B doesn't exist. If you were accessing A.B.C, you would get an error with 16R4, and because of feedback from the beta test program, we did the modification in R5, so that A.B.C won't produce any error. It will just produce an undefined value. The undefined value, of course, will eventually produce an error if you are trying to do some actual work with the value. Say, for example, if you are trying to store the undefined value in the database, you will get an error. The null is a bit different. It comes from the SQL language, actually, historically. The null means it exists, but we don't know the value. Historically, that's the meaning of null. So, accessing a property of null, if you try to read a property of the null value, will trigger an error, because this is invalid. This is invalid to ask a property of something that does exist, but you don't know the value. Well, this is some semantic play, but C object, C collection, C pointers. When you are declaring a C pointer, a C collection, or a C object variable, you are not doing anything more than that. These variables are empty. You did not allocate any object or collection or pointers yet. So in 4D, we are considering these variables are null. This is not the exact definition of I just explained, but we considered introducing a third concept, but we felt it was too much. So that's why we reuse the null value for these specific cases. Don't confuse with the undefined variable command, which is not deprecated. Maybe you know this command, the undefined variable command. So this command is deprecated because obviously because we know of the 4D compiler for a long time already, any variable is necessarily defined at compile time. So the undefined variable always returns false in compile time. So the undefined variable command is totally useless. I think we should remove it from the language, so don't use it. And don't confuse with the undefined value you get when you are accessing a property which doesn't exist in your object. So the null, beginning with R5, you get a new command in 4D, which is called null, and it returns the null value, and the null value is of type null. So null is at the same time a command, a type, and a value. And this command is actually especially useful to compare your properties. So if you want to know if A.B contains something, is actually defined or not, just say if A.B equal null or not equal null. That's convenient. And it has some intelligence. In the case, we felt that most of the case you don't need to make the distinction between null and undefined. Most of the time you just want to know if you have an actual value for your property. So the equal sign and the not equal signs consider null and undefined as equivalent. Okay, so you can conveniently test if your property exists or not, or if your property exists and is equal null, you just, it is considered the same, so you just have to write if A.B equal null, and in that case you know that you don't have the property or that it is null. So null is a value, a function, and a type. So again, there is a blog post about that matters. I recommend each time with a blog post, usually there is a teeny database, 4D database you can download and play with a concept and to get a better explanation by playing with the database. A word about circular references in your object. What are circular references? It is in such scenario where you have an object which in some way is referencing itself. For example, I say A.B equal A. Okay, so in A, I have somewhere a property that references A. It's legal. You can do that. In some cases, it can be useful. But you have some limitation. Obviously, you cannot express this in JSON, because in JSON, you have to put everything in text format, so you would have A.B.A.B.A.B.A, and you will fill up your disk hard drive with a huge text file. So we don't, if you are calling JSON stringify with such thing, you will get an error. It's also a challenge for the automatic deallocation system I explained earlier about the reference counting. because in that case, because we are counting the references, if A dot B is referencing A, just A, the reference to A will never drop to 0 because A is referencing itself. So the number of reference to A will never drop to 0. So because we are deallocating the object only if the reference counts drop to 0, A will never be deallocated. So fortunately, we have a specific algorithm in 4D to detect this. And to be sure, we can deallocate actually A because A is actually referencing itself. So you don't have a memory leak if you are using circular references. But be aware that this specific algorithm is expensive regarding performances. So you may get bad performances if you have a huge collection of many objects with a lot of circular references. Your code may get somewhat slower because of that. So if you can, avoid circular references. Other limitations are that you cannot store a search object with circular references in the database or save, for the same reason, an object in a blob or export to the server or export in text because internally we are using something similar to JSON Stringify. But the good news is that in V17 we are improving this so that you can pass cyclic circular references to 4D server from 4D remote or to store circular references in the database as object fields. That will come in V17. Another point is that in V17 we'll be able to recognize multiple references to the same object. For example, say you have a collection of people. Each person has an address, and say that some people are living at the same address. So at that point, you have one single object for the address, and many people are using this one single object for the address. You are saving this in V16. If you are loading it again, you will get as many address objects as you have people. Because for the V16 is not able to recognize, he saved the same address object multiple times. So when I'm loading it again in memory, I will build one single address object. So V17 will be able to do that and to instantiate one single object if it is exactly the same at the time you store the object in the database. Checking the time. 15? Okay, so I will accelerate a bit. One nice usage of an object is that you could use an object property can be of any type. And you can change the value type at runtime. And you cannot do that with a variable in compile mode. In compile mode, once you typed a local variable, you cannot change its type. This is good. This is good for static typing of your variables. But if at compile time you want the possibility to change the variable type, you can use a property, an object property to do that. For example, say you want to write a method that a very generic method, project method, which is doing an addition. It could be an addition of strings, numbers, or even pictures. Here you cannot say if you are adding pictures, numbers, or strings. So this is convenient to have a generic add project method that works with these three kinds of value. It could be useful in some case, especially for the return values, $0. In many occasions, you may need a project method that which which is returning sometimes a string or sometimes a number. This is sometimes convenient. Actually, this mechanism is quite the same with pointers. The pointers, when the second line, the two lines of code are actually doing the same logic at execution time, because when we are dereferencing a pointers, it doesn't know until execution what the pointer is actually pointing to. So this is the same with the property access. Execution will be slower because type checking will be performed at execution instead of compilation. And it is unsafe because type checking is done at runtime, but sometimes it's convenient. So you may keep it in mind for when you have a good use case. A word about the various data types you may put or not in a C object, and which are not described in JSON when you are exposing your object in JSON. Blobs are currently not available in object. That will come, but currently the blobs are not available. Integers, but actually you can, of course, put integers as numbers. This is just to mention that actually all properties, numeric properties in an object are actually stored as numbers. There's no specific integer type for properties. Dates. So there was some change in 4D beginning with 16R6. Dates are actually stored as dates in object. Before 16R6, dates used to be stored as string in an object. So we changed that. So now dates are first level data type for object properties. The time used to be stored as milliseconds in object. When you were trying to put a C time in an object property, we used to convert the time as milliseconds, but we felt this was inconvenient actually, and error-prone and not intuitive. So we are changing that for V17, so that when you are trying in V17 to put a time in an object property, the time will be stored as seconds. So this is a compatibility break. But there will be a database parameter if you need to adapt the time so that you can reverse to the previous behavior if you need to. You can store a pointer as an object property. You can put an image now. This is something new in 4D. You can put an image as an object property. And 4D Write Pro, 4D View Pro are all using objects too. And Orda, we just discussed, Orda is using objects. JSON schema, I won't talk much about that. It is a grammar to describe your object properties. If you are interested, you can come in at my session tomorrow about JSON form, because JSON forms are using schema extensively. So I will talk about schema tomorrow. Collections. So collection is an important new data type in 4D. So it's like an array, but it's an array you can pass as parameter, and you can return an array in $0 in your project method. So that's very, very convenient. You don't have to use pointers any longer to use this kind of array, but you are calling them collection instead. The elements of a collection can be of any type, contrary to an array. And the collection is automatically resized. For example, if you are assigning element 100, the 99 first elements are automatically defined to null. Because we know they exist, but we don't know the value.
I'm curious, do those elements actually exist in memory?
Yes.
The question is, those questions actually, the elements actually exist in
Yes.
memory?
Yes, they are actually allocated. So just to summarize the difference between a collection and an array, so you define an array with array text, for example, and the collections. Actually, array text is doing two things at the same time: define the definition of the variable and the allocation of the elements. So with collection, there's two separate statements for that. So the type is fixed for an array, mixed for a collection. You are using curly braces for array and square brackets for a collection. And you are accessing the length, the size of a collection with the length property, with the dot notation if you want, or the bracket notation or whatever as any other property. And indexing, actually, when you are asking for an array of size 10, actually you get 11 elements because there is a zero, the element 0. With collection, you don't get any extra element. So it's starting still from 0 to length -1. Don't forget the -1 when you are iterating. But for iterating, there is something better than making a -1. I will show you later. Many collection methods to manipulate your collections. There is a nice blog post with an extensive ODUI database to explain all of these. All of these are, again, inspired by JavaScript. So if you did some JavaScript code earlier with JavaScript arrays, you will get pretty much the same functions as in JavaScript now in 4D. Pretty extensive with the blog post. So I encourage you to look at the blog post. So iterating, you know this kind of code, of course, with the for and for. And for a collection, you are iterating from 0 to length -1. So we felt that it's too easy to do the mistake to forget the -1. So we did the for each statement. So it's easier. So you are saying for each element in my collection, do something with my element. No variable anymore to manage the index. You don't need to care about the index anymore. The for each statement allows you also to iterate for among all the property names of your object. So here I am not iterating in a collection, but an object, and I am asking to iterate all the names of each property of my object. Here again on collection, actually this is an entity. It's actually an entity selection from Orda, from what you saw this morning with Laurent Ribardière. So here, for example, I am iterating all the records of a selection. And I am displaying the name of my record. If you want to break during iteration earlier, you can say for each element in my collection while some condition. So if your condition gets false, you will break the iteration. Okay? So there is a while and there is a until. The difference that the while is tested, the condition is tested before entering the loop, and until the condition is tested after entering the loop. So this is very convenient. So I only have 5 minutes for shared objects. So as you may already know, if you want to do preemptive threading, so preemptive threading is a performance boost if you want to take advantage of your multi-core machine. So if you want to share data between your threads, it's quite complex. Anyway, when you want to share something between multiple threads internally or anyway, you need to use a semaphore to manage the simultaneous access to your data. A semaphore, it's expensive, it creates bottlenecks, it potential deadlocks. So it's difficult. Sharing data between processes is difficult. Sorry, missed the last point. Yes, it degrades the scalability because of this problem. Because if you have one single point of access to access one shared data between all your processes, it creates a bottleneck. So your application will not be able to scale with several threads. So the solution is, as much as possible, don't share data. The solution is to pass input information to your thread, and your thread do the computation it needs, and pass the result back as another message, as output. And your function should be pure as much as possible. A pure function, what is a pure function? Is a pure function, it depends only on the parameters you pass to it. It seems obvious when you have a project method which is accepting $1, $2, $3 and returns $0. You expect that each time you are passing exactly the same value as $1, $2, $3, you get exactly the same $0 if the function is pure. Because if your function is accessing an interprocess variable to do the computation, then the $0 might not be the same. You may call the same function with the same parameters, but you might get in $0 something different each time because the function may do some computation with some other interprocess variable, for example. And the side effect is the reverse. Your function, each time you are calling it, it may change some interprocess variable in your application. And by changing interprocess variable, it will change the overall behavior of your application. So this makes your code less maintainable and more complex. So this is the theory. Yes, for sure, for messaging, call worker and call form commands are the ideal solution. So this is the theory. Of course, we know that you do need to share. Sometimes you can't avoid it. That's why we introduce the shared object and the shared collection. So these are special object and special collection, and they manage the semaphore because anyway we need a semaphore to share data, but they share the semaphore internally for you. You don't have to manage the semaphore yourself. And for this, we introduced a new statement, which is use and end use. So when you want to modify some data you want to share with another process, you just have to embed your code in the use statement to declare that you intend to modify your shared data. And this use and use statement will take care of the internal semaphore for you. This is the fact that it is a statement. Sorry for the question, I'm already late. Get back to me after because there is another session, and thank you. So because it is a statement, you cannot forget to release the semaphore. This is nice for that. Say, for example, if you have a semaphore, you need to remember to call clear semaphore. Here, you cannot forget to call clear semaphore because it is like if and if. You cannot forget to do the end if you did a if. This is the same. And because it is a statement, each time, because you can say use object 1 and use object 2, you are sure you will be releasing the semaphore in the good order. It's like if and end if again. Say I am using object 1, then using object 2. 4D will guarantee that you will be releasing object 2 before releasing object 1. This is the benefit of using a statement. So there is actually, for shared object and shared collection, there is actually two internal semaphores. One which is very fast, lightweight, for reading. It is transparent. You don't even have to use the use statement. It's automatic. Each time you are accessing a property for reading. The other one is explicit. It is for writing, and you control it by using the use statement. What is nice is that writing doesn't block the reading. Okay, so writing, you need to use the use statement. You say, I am using this object to modify it. So I am using the use statement. This will prevent other threads to modify the same object at the same time. But this will not prevent other threads to read the properties of this object. The other thread will not be blocked. But sometimes, even for reading, you may want to use the use statement to be sure that you get a consistent view of all the properties of your object. For example, say you have an object to represent an address. Okay? So you have the street number, the street name, the zip code, the city, all in 5 different properties. Say you are changing an address, so you will be changing a property 1, property 2, property 3. And if another thread wants to read the address, he wants to get a consistent view of all the properties. So in that case, you will be using the use statement to be sure you are reading all the properties of your address, and you get a consistent view of your address, and you have no chance to get the zip code of the old address and the city of the new address. Okay? So sometimes it's convenient to use the use semaphore even for reading. Deadlocks possibility are minimized, but are still possible. They are minimized because the use statement, you cannot intermix the acquisition of the semaphore and the release of the semaphore, but there are still possibility if you are accessing two different objects in the bad way, just to mention. So one very important thing is now when you are passing an object, a traditional object or a collection to a process with the new process command, because traditional objects cannot be shared, they are cloned. It is a copy of all the properties of your object or properties you are passing to the new process command with the call worker command. But with shared object and shared collection, because they are designed for this, they are designed to be shared, they are not cloned when you are passing them to another process or another worker. So this is the important difference with shared object and shared collection, to be able to share these variables between different processes. The storage, Ad mentioned the storage this morning. So what is the storage? The storage is a global catalog of your shared object and collection. It is meant to let you access your shared object or shared collection from anywhere in 4D. Usually, you don't need that, because usually you pass your object or collection as parameters to your method or as parameters to your process. But for example, from a database method or from a trigger, if you want to access your shared data from a trigger in the database, you have no parameters in your trigger. You cannot pass a parameter to your trigger. So the only way to get access to your shared data from a trigger, for example, is to use this specific storage, so this specific catalog to retrieve, to get an access by name to your shared data. So this is a conveniency for you to like an interprocess variable, to have access to your shared data from cases where you don't have the possibility to pass them as a parameter. So the usage is quite easy. To put something in the storage, because it is global, it is shared, so you have to use the use statement anytime you want to add something in your catalog. So here, for example, I am adding some information for the host and the port number of my URL, of my server. And when I want to use this information, because it's just reading, I don't have to use the use statement. So I'm just accessing the storage object as any other object and from anywhere. So it could be from a trigger or from a database method. I can use my storage information. Actually, so again, this is there is a blog post with Node UI with 2 examples, if I remember correctly, about with some 4D code, very simple, to use the use statements, shared object, shared collection, and the storage object. Thank you.